Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're watching AMTV, alternative media television, hard-hitting and in your face. Thank you for your support. I did a video yesterday talking about the fact that I think we have terrifying signs of an economic collapse in the not too distant future. There was a report that came out on the heels of that. We were talking about people living the van life. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that there's signs of a terrifying housing crisis. There's signs of a terrifying stock market crisis, a bond debt bubble crisis, potential for sovereign defaults. We see this with, rising prices and everything from rent to food, etc. And somehow mysteriously, miraculously, no one's talking about this right now, although we are here because it's important. The Fed, which is in cahoots with the politicians because they're all baked into the same establishment narrative, they're all on the same team. Notice how Janet Yellen is holding off on any potential interest rate hike until the election is decided. Why? Well, we know it helps Hillary Clinton because if the wheels were to fall off now, everybody could point a finger and say, hey, look, you, Barack Obama, are all responsible for this phony recovery. When the next president of the United States gets into office, whether or not it's Hillary Clinton or actually could be Barack Obama with a third term. That's a possibility. Don't take that off the table. I'm serious about that. But whether or not it's Hillary Clinton or Donald J. Trump, they inherit, in my humble opinion, the worst economic and financial crash that this world has ever seen. Common misconception is people think because of all the easy credit, stimulus, the hookering of the Federal Reserve, the printing presses, the leverage, all these things that we're going to be stepping into, inflationary/hyperinflationary event. I actually think the economic signs, based on GDP growth, which is pretty much zero, non-existent, and the overheated stimulus is actually showing, and take it from a guy who actually studied finance for 10 years, has a degree in this, and worked for a major Wall Street firm. I actually think we're seeing more of a deflationary spiral. And I think just like 2008, 2009, but worse, we see and live through another deflationary debt collapse. What the elites would call a debt jubilee. Because these countries around the world, domestic market here, developed markets, and emerging markets are taking on extraordinary amounts of debt. GDP's, debt to GDP is well over 100%. During the presidency of Barack Obama, for example, the national debt doubled. So they've got to keep the system going. They got to liquefy it. They got to keep people, again, on the minimum credit card payments, et cetera. They got to keep the 0% interest rates for the banks. This is just blowing up another severe bubble like we had before. And there's going to be fallout at some point. So how do they handle the fallout? What happens? I get a lot of questions. People say like, well, Christopher, what will happen to me? If I'm in debt and there's a debt jubilee, what happens? Well, I think we need to learn from the 2008, 2009 crisis. Look at real estate specifically. What happened during the deflationary collapse? Well, most people lost their homes if they were over-leveraged. And most people who didn't even think they were over-leveraged found out that they were over-leveraged because housing prices collapsed in some states like here in Arizona some 50%. The worst we've ever seen since the Great Depression in the 1930s. If the system doesn't have cheap money and people can't take out loans and the course reverses itself and there's a reversion to the mean, everything goes down the shitter, so to speak. Everything goes down at once and there's a reset. It's why I wholeheartedly believe, and what will happen to you is you'll take it on the chin. It's why I wholeheartedly believe the whole reason for 2008 and 2009, an engineered event, was to transfer that wealth from the little people, from you, to the top 0.001% before the inevitable reset button, which will reset probably with a debt jubilee and a restructuring, for just like we saw in 08 and 09 of the too big to fail banks, and a complete collapse of which we've already seen the middle class in America and worldwide. All the wealth has already been transferred. And with that reset, they usher in war. bigger war than what we have now. And they'll get people engaged in that war and engaged in that fear. And we'll be fighting. People don't think this can happen, but it will. We'll be fighting just like we've seen in generations past. The West will be fighting more than likely the rising East. Russia, China, this economic, political warfare, as they sell our debt and sell our U.S. treasuries and deleverage. That's why they're also buying gold. And disinvest from an American-centric, Western-dominated world. A West that is no longer taken seriously. It's why the United States needs to propel these wars in the Middle East, by the way. It's why they are resorting to dropping bombs and are resorting to further destabilization, because it's really kind of that last bullet that we have. So, America has shot its last bullet. There's a reason why they continue to liquefy the system. There's a reason why we're moving from zero to negative interest rates. There's a reason why, Janet Yellen is holding off on a rate hike until after the election. We've run out of moves. War is baked into the pie. And it's very, very scary. We got a glimpse, kind of a taste of our own medicine in 2008 and 2009, and I'm putting out this warning now because it's going to get worse. I honest to God believe that it does. And what I'm telling you is that now's the time to get right with yourself, with God, your family, your friends, and take care of you, yourself. The government's not going to do it for you. And as we're dancing on eggshells, and we all know this is fakery, waiting for the next big one, and it's what we're waiting for, and it's very scary, and it keeps me up at night. But there's going to be an event, like a bomb going off, God forbid, in an American or European city, or a suitcase nuke in a part of the Middle East, or something that none of us can see coming and none of us can predict, but will conveniently play into the hands of that reset button. I mean, think about it from those in power's perspective. Where do they go from here? If the debt's here and all they can do is continue to just compound that problem and continue to spend and just delay the repercussions, what are they going to do to service that debt? How are they going to attack that problem? How are they going to solve that problem? And the answer is they can't. It's why they've laid out these series of events for a very specific reason. Again, when 2008 and 2009 hit, I knew without a shadow of a doubt, that that was engineered, that it was an inside job, that something wasn't right. There is a game plan here. There is a chess move here. And the globalist elite, they know exactly what they're doing. And that's why I'm telling you today to get right. Take care of yourself. Why do you think we talk about self-sufficiency and getting off grid and taking precautions and preparing for the worst but hoping for the best? It's almost kind of like a piece of hair. It's very easy to snap. That rubber band is wound very, very tight. There will be a reversion to the mean. There will be a consequence. They tell you everything's fine, but we all know it. We all know it instinctually. We all know it in our gut. Something's off and something's wrong. Our lives are just a snapshot in time. And sometimes I think we lose sight and focus of what really matters: our family, our friends, our God, our faith. There's no guarantee for tomorrow, folks. We see it all the time. Friends, family, people pass. things change, life is constantly evolving. There's no guarantee there's tomorrow. It's my hope with these videos not to scare you, not to put fear out there, but to honestly educate you and empower you to the real truth. What's really going on behind the scenes, what people are afraid to tell you, what you don't get from the mainstream media, what your friends and family are, a lot of them are scared to talk about because they don't want to think about it. Now's the time to act, to take precaution, to trust your gut, your instincts, that little guy on your shoulder, if you want to call it that. It's never wrong. And in this hoopla of the election right now, the dog and pony show of the one-party system, I think a lot of us are losing sight and focus of what the real issues are, the real problems that are coming. Again, think ahead of the curve, outside of the box, post-election. I'm telling you, very, very serious events coming. War, calamity, economic turmoil. Love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Christopher Green, hard-hitting and in your face. You've been watching AMTV, Alternative Media Television.